Good evening. My name is Vernon Dempsey. The title of my project is the implementation of ArcServer for the Waste Regulatory and Compliance Department for the Navajo Nation Environmental Protection Agency. Oh, was working. Okay. The intent of this project was to implement the following objectives using Esri technologies. The first objective was to create a bidirectional editing application that supports data editing from an Access database and also from a web service. The second was to create a web service that conveys information to the general tribal members. Here's an overview of this presentation. I will give you some background information on the study area, the review and data processing, and also the methodology taken to complete this project. Then we will review the results and also review findings and future work in the conclusion section, followed by questions. Okay. In the early 1920s, oil was discovered. In the early 1920s, oil was discovered on Navajo reservation. The discovery prompted the creation of the Navajo government in 1923. The newly formed government was tasked to deal with the American oil companies in negotiating lease agreements. The Navajo reservation has an arid environment, and water is considered a sacred and precious resource. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, only 3% of the Earth's water is fresh water. Of that, 30% of that is groundwater. 1 gallon of gasoline can render 1 million gallons of water unsafe for consumption. Fuel readily evaporates at the surface level, but can easily seep into the soil. Once gas reaches the groundwater, it is very expensive and extremely difficult to clean up. To date, the Navajo Nation has been adversely impacted by the mining and oil industries, leaving the reservation scarred with abandoned mines and contaminated water sources. It is of great importance for the Navajo Nation to protect its environment and water resources for future generations. Here are some pictures of different areas around the Navajo Nation. The top left image is the Navajo Code Talkers Memorial, and the one to the right is Spider Rock in Canyon de Chelly, Arizona, and Narbona Pass in the Chusca Mountains. The Navajo Nation is situated in the Four Corners region of the Southwest. The Navajo has a land base of 27,413 square miles and a population of around 320,000 members, of which 200,000 members reside on the reservation. Here's a reference map of my study area. The Navajo Environmental Protection Commission was established in 1972. Later in 1995, through tribal legislation, became known as the Navajo Nation EPA. During the same time, the Navajo Nation Environmental Policy Act was enacted to serve as guidance for the organization. The mission for the Navajo Nation EPA is as follows. With respect to the net values, to protect human health, land, air, and water by developing, implementing, and enforcing environmental laws and regulations with a commitment to public participation, sustainability, and partnership and restoration. The Waste Regulatory and Compliance Department is one of 5 departments within the Navajo Nation EPA. The department administers the following programs: hazardous waste, resource conservation and recovery, Superfund, underground and leaking storage tanks. The primary focus of this project is aimed at maintaining data for underground, above ground, and portable fuel storage tanks. The Waste Regulatory and Compliance Department stores all data pertaining to inspections, installation, and removal of fuel storage tanks, just to mention a few. The Waste Regulatory and Compliance Department provided a 2000 ArcServer database for this project. The ArcServer database has 51 tables, 29 queries, 81 forms, 15 reports, and 3 macros. The department also furnished spatial data. The spatial data provided used the Navajo Nation coordinate system. This is a single coordinate system that encompasses the entire Navajo Nation and provides the least amount of distortion. They use this coordinate system to circumvent issues arising from being situated across multiple state plain zones. Here is the map depicting the study area and the 5 state plain zones. Upon reviewing the ArcServer database, I found that there were 450 fuel storage tank locations that lacked reliable coordinates for mapping. The service stations layer yielded 130 locations with no attribute data. The feature class and access tables shared a unique ID. I then used the unique ID to combine the spatial and tabular information to create a new feature class layer called fuel storage tanks. With that, I proceeded to load the data into ArcServer database, making sure to register the data as versioned and also creating permanent relationship classes between the new feature class and the SDE tables. These steps are crucial in creating edit-enabled web servers. Next, I began the process of publishing the edit-enabled web service. This is just a matter of loading the necessary layer and related tables to a map session in ArcMap. After loading the data, I publish them as a service. In Service Editor, I made sure to check the feature access option. This allows the service to be published as a feature service and in turn creates an edit-enabled web service. I later published the Navajo Nation boundary layer as a map service, which does not allow editing. Next, I use ArcGIS Viewer for Flex to configure the application due to its ability to edit related tables. Flex is an out-of-the-box, ready-to-use application that does not require a lot of programming skills. I simply selected the base maps, loaded the operational layers, and configured pop-ups to access the attribute and the related tables. Selected the widgets I wish to use and chose the layout and the design, and finally previewed the configured application. The application is now ready for deployment on the Waste Regulatory and Compliance Department's webpage. The first web service created was the departmental web service. The Waste Regulatory and Compliance Department personnel are able to edit their data using this service. They are able to create and delete locations, make edits to related tables, and the service is limited to the department. The second service is a public web service. The primary function of this web service is to map and convey storage tank information to the tribal members. To conclude, I was able to create 2 web services that meet most of the needs of the Waste Regulatory and Compliance Department. One service provides the ability to convey information to general tribal members, while the other service gives the department the ability to edit data through direct internet access, meaning through a desktop computer with an internet connection or a laptop with wireless internet access. For future work, to create a truly bi-directional editing and mobile GIS application requires the migration of data to an SQL database, the creation of a access user interface that supports the that supports the current functions of the database being used, and will also require the use of ArcGIS API for JavaScript to upgrade the applications. Questions?